Hey, today let's talk about how to do product portfolio management. I've worked as a product director and as a CPO, and I manage different sizes of product portfolios from 3 products all the way to 5 products in some other company. And managing a product portfolio is always something tricky, and resource allocation, how to distribute teams, is always something that you need to think about and work. And so today I wanted to talk a little bit about how to do, or what are the best practices to do product portfolio management. So it's going to help you to really start understanding how you have to work in a product leader position when you had to work with different products. When you're doing product portfolio management, what your goal is to help the company achieve its strategic intents or its strategic goals. There are going to be different ways of doing this. You can be more strategic, you can be more focused on growth, you can be more focused on ROI. So depends on what is your strategy. You are going to make decisions differently to really focus on specific products or another. But I want to first do one thing that I haven't seen very often done when talking about product portfolio management, and this: what is the position of your product portfolio and how your products are stacking up. So I have opened a Miro board and I'm going to be manually drawing a little bit what could be the ideas of different products that you could be building. Let's think about this as a product development process where you start with discovery. You will have different things like interviewing your customers, finding what is the problem scoping, problem space, understanding or doing prototyping, doing mock-ups, stuff like that. Then planning what is going to come in the product or what are going to be the different set of features that the product has, prioritizing, implementing those ones that you have chosen to start working with, doing testing, delivery, and iteration. There's going to be many other steps, but just for simplification, I just wanted to put just a few of them. And then start to see how a product portfolio could work. So typically what a product portfolio is going to do is going to look into a business and is going to look into the workflows that the customers have and see how the different products are solving the problems of the needs that those customers have. So for example, here, you could say that there's something like Jira. Jira started as a mostly implementation, planning, prioritizing tool. So you could argue that Jira is here spanning across these different stages. Planning, really not that much, slightly, but not a lot. Other tools fit more in that area. So Jira or Jira, depends on how you pronounce it, by Atlassian, will be somewhere here. You will have other tools that are going to be focused on other areas. You could argue that things like Confluence, again, is going to overlap slightly, but it's going to be focused on another problem. Confluence will be here, and just realizing how horrible my bright is, or my handwrite is when I'm writing like this. It's not much better anyways if I'm with pen and paper probably. I'm just going to use a C, or really ugly C there. And that would be Confluence, for example. And you can see that I could have other products more in the beginning. I don't remember now how it is called, the tool that Atlassian has, but other tools like, for example, Product Board. And yes, this is not product portfolio management because it's a different company. Product Board, Air Focus, Product Plan would fall more in this area, where they're looking more into the discovery, they're looking more into the planning, they're going to look into the prioritizing. I believe that Atlassian has one tool, but I don't remember how is it called now, that is solving that area. And Atlassian has other tools to do code, where to store the core, like Bitbucket and stuff like that. And I don't know all the tools that they have, so I'm not going to try to pretend that I know them, but there are different tools that they're going to have for the different stages. So delivery, probably there's going to be one. There's many of the tools from different companies fall into the testing and the different aspects of testing. So you could argue here that that's what they are. Here there will be the other products that they could be building. So basically what you have when you have this situation, imagine that this will be a tool by Atlassian here. you have a product portfolio of the different tools that Atlassian is offering. This is a way of creating a product portfolio. Another way of creating a product portfolio that many companies do, imagine the ones that do testing. What they do is that they might have different type of testing. They might have UI testing. They might have code coverage. They might have static code analysis. They might have different areas that they are looking into. And this might be the product portfolio. So basically, in this case, this is more like, in a way, a tier portfolio, tier base. And this will be more like a, I don't know how to call it, workflow-based portfolio. I don't have a name for this. I should come with a cool name and create yet another cool framework for people to go and download and to have to learn. But what you want to do here is that you have products that kind of stack upon each other, and they cover a single problem. You could argue if this is a single problem or there are parallel problems. But then in this case, you are building on top of each other, and you are serving kind of a niche of the market pretty well, or a niche or a need of the market pretty well. Whereas in this one, you are serving many needs and many personas. So here, usually there's many personas. So user personas or customers. And here, usually, you are going to serve less user personas in this case, because usually the person that does UI testing and the one that does code coverage, and the one that does static code analysis are different type of people. So one of them might be more like an architect, the other ones might be more QA engineers, and they are usually not necessarily the same. Anyways, I work for a company that did these things, so that's why I'm familiar with these ones. But you would have less user personas in this case than in this one where you will have more user personas. Okay, and this is a way of representing or understanding how you're doing your how you're doing your product portfolio management. One thing that I would recommend then when planning is some teams, and I've seen this, they have people, they have teams here. And then the teams might be here, team 1, team 2, team 3, and then they are allocated to do this or to do that or to do this. And then they might be moved another year or another period, development period, to do this. The problem with this approach is that when you don't have teams that are dedicated for a product like this, and again, sorry for not very beautiful paint drawing, when you go for this approach, then you are moving resources. And every time the resources might be addressing the needs of different products. When you're having this approach, you have teams that their success means the success of the product. And this is not just development teams, it's also sales teams, it's also marketing teams. If you are moving people back and forth, there is less chances to gain the expertise and to feel like you belong to that team. Otherwise, basically, you are doing a little bit like a matrix of here is this team, this team, this team, this team. So team 1, team 2, team 3, and team 4. So let's say that this is an R&D team and they're working on this product, but also this product. And this R&D team is also working this product, and then marketing team is working here and here, and then sales are working here and here. But if you have dedicated people, so now the thing is that everybody thinks that they belong to this team, but they don't feel like they belong to the success of the product. If you put all these people to work together, sorry, now I don't have room to paint properly. And let me undo this. Maybe if I change colors, this will be a little bit more. Is that a green? Yeah, it is a green. Clearly, it's the first time that I'm using the hand. So this way, you are basically doing it, in my opinion, right. You are having teams that are responsible for the success of the product. In this case, I would say that you are not doing it right, because these teams don't feel the ownership of the product, don't feel like they own the product. They're jumping from one product to another. So they're just an R&D team or a marketing team, but they don't feel like they are the Jira team or the Product Board team or whatever is the different teams that they will have in those companies. So that's why I'm saying that having teams that are responsible for all the parts of the product, from the actual implementation all the way to the delivery, to the customers, to the sales, it's going to help you to be more successful. So the other thing that I was talking earlier is that with product portfolio management, what you want to really plan is how you're going to distribute your resources to grow in your products. So, or to help grow your products. Of course, there's nothing that it's for sure. But if you have strategic areas or strategic goals, those strategic goals usually are going to be represented by the products that are in those areas. So let's say that I have a strategic goal of, I don't know, of expanding in the planning. If I am Atlassian planning, and I'm going to be also expanding in the testing. I don't even know if they have an actual, they might have. I'm not completely sure they have testing tools. And then they want to, of course, keep their cash cow, which is more like in the implementation side and the documentation. And I'm going to put these ones as another tier, which will be implementation plus documentation. And then they will have things like maintenance. I would put this still separately as a strategic goal, because probably they want to keep ahead of the competition. They just don't want to maintain it. And here they will make maintenance. Okay. Maintenance. Okay. Stays as main. And then I will have my different teams. And I will start them here, understanding that, well, if my plan to grow now is in these 3 focus areas, I might have also maybe a buffer, because there's going to be always the nice to haves. Nice to have. I don't know if that's an abbreviation. Sorry if I'm putting something that is not. And I would say that, well, maintenance is going to be about what? 25%. That's a relatively common. And I'm going to distribute here most of my development. I don't want that my development is going here, which usually goes. That's what you end up building features that you probably didn't need. And you want to keep this ideally to a minimum, even less than 10% if possible. And that leaves you with a 65% that you had to distribute here. So you can do a 30-30, no, sorry, you can do a 20-20-25 or something like that. So let's say that 25 in plan, because we want to grow, 20 here percent, and another 20% here. Sorry for this to look so ugly. Let's try to make a line here to separate both sides. And then I will look here into which ones are going to be the teams that are going to be working here. So I'm going to be the team 1 and team 2 and team 3 are going to be working in this area, team 4 and 5 here, 6, 7, and another one team here. I don't know that this would maybe overlap a little bit. Might be that some of the maintenance are coming in these areas, so it might be taken by some of these team 1s and 2 because they have the expertise. But that's something that you will have to see how those are distributed. And these ones, again, I would say the same. I'm not going to put the numbers because, again, it will be depending on the expertise. If they align somehow to these plans that you are doing, they might be justified or more justified. Here you will have also not just the development teams, but also the marketing team to understand, okay, which one is the team that is going to focus on the promotion, or the person that is going to focus on the promotion for all the new changes that we are going to do for the planning side, for the product that they have for planning, or for the products that they have for testing, and so on. And this is how you start then distributing your resources. And yes, resources doesn't have to equate to number of teams, neither they have to equate to number of features or projects that you want to put in the how's it called, in the plan. But if you think, again, I'm going to complicate this massively now, but if you think about what like a KPI tree shows, if you think about your KPI tree, you will have here, for example, well, this is my vision, and this is my first strategy that was growing in planning. And from here, I can have different projects. Okay. And from these projects, I can then have the, this was a strategy, sorry, it's not project. This is the level of strategy, and that's the planning strategy. And these are the different projects that I will be working, or the different initiatives. So here I will have one project, P1, P2, P3, blah, blah, blah. Okay. And it will continue for the other ones here. We will have I believe that I put the testing, and there was the I plus Confluence or whatever it was. And these ones will have their own projects. So basically here, you start to look at the amount of projects that you have here, and that would be linked then to these teams that are driving those projects. And that's how this links all together. How to close the loop with this whole thing is that, well, you just don't want to put these only as projects. You want to measure the results. You want to make sure that you're really achieving your strategic goals. And this is why also KPI trees is a very beautiful matrix to do this, is because for these ones, you will have different KPIs. Oof. I'm getting worse and worse at writing. So, sorry. So you will have another KPI here, and you will have another KPI here. These KPIs might have different values, or they might be the same. It depends a little bit what the different projects are trying to aim, or they might affect, one project might affect several KPIs. So that potentially could happen. So there could be something like that. And then you can start seeing how this works together. Basically, with my product portfolio, I'm trying to set up this whole vision and an understanding of how am I going to be distributing the team's efforts, how I'm going to distribute the allocation of personnel based on where do I see that I want to grow in the future, and where do I want to have more investment and more drive, and drive more projects that are going to increase my bets or my chances to grow in that industry. So for example, if talking about the example that we have here, if we think that Atlassian doesn't have much in the testing side and they want to grow, they probably will want to have a bigger allocation. There is always a problem here. And especially if you don't have teams that own a product, and yes, you might have to shuffle people every now and then. That's probably something that will happen. You might end up with your cash cow not having any resources because you are focusing too much on growth. And that can cause problems as well, because the main customers or the biggest group of customers are not going to be getting the development that they will expect in the product, and they see that the product is growing in different directions. Why this happens? So if I go here, I've seen this happening with companies that basically are having products or one product. And this is why I think that this is one of the problems of companies. Let's say that a company has a product that spans different stages, and teams are being moved to sometimes work on this area, Santa's work on this area, Santa's work on this area. But if I am a team who is focusing very much on discovery, and this is where the strongest, let's say that this is the biggest, the cash cow area. So money comes from there. So let's see, maybe a dollar sign is a more clear, if that's a clear dollar sign, a more clear interpretation. This starts to look like a really bad drawing of a truck or a train. And then if this is my cash cow, but then my investment and my development goes all to planning and all to here, and I basically don't have teams doing this work, then my biggest customer base, this might be 70% or even 80% of your revenue, are not seeing any development. And at best, they're just seeing maintenance. That potentially can hurt you because you're basically keeping them as they are, and you are not improving the products that they have. And they go from potentially being your loyal customers to just be customers that are being served and customers that are not so loyal because they're not so happy with the direction that the product is going. So this is something to be careful of that can happen if you are too much focused on growth and ignoring your existing customers. This is something that you had to pay attention to. So that's why sometimes I don't like products that spam too many different problems and that become very complex because they try to do too many things. I'd rather have smaller products that integrate very well with the rest of the product portfolio, don't get me wrong, but that they are separate products and that they have their own resources, they have their own teams that are focusing on growing those products. So basically, I've talked you a little bit through this, but I think that the main outcomes for me now is, what is your approach when you are doing product portfolio management? We talk a little bit about how to do it with my messy drawings, but now you had to take, what is the approach that you may have? Are you trying to maximize your ROI, trying to maximize your best customers, or create the most impact for the products that you are building, for the developments that you are doing, trying to maximize how much potential money or revenue are you going to create for them? Are you going the other way around? Are you going to try to be very strategic and try to go for growth very heavily to potentially detract of your existing customers? Or are you going for a balanced approach? This is going to depend a lot. If you are in a early stage mode, of course you want to be strategic, you want to be very heavy focused on growth because probably your margins at this point, your revenue is relatively small and maybe cannot even sustain the business if you're not even profitable. If you are a mature company, you might want to go just for ROI and reduce the amount of strategic bets or strategic growth that you want to do. But there's a third approach that probably is something that is going to work for many companies, which is having a balanced approach. Don't ignore your existing customers, especially when you have a sizable set of user personas. So imagine what I said earlier. If you have a ton of personas that are working on the discovery, if you're working a lot with, let's say, designers, product managers that work very focused on discovering new opportunities, you probably want to make sure that you still continue to build the capabilities there because that's your key value proposition. You don't want to lose your customers, but you don't want to risk it to be only in that area. And you want to have those strategic bets that it can be going into, into the next areas. It can be continue with the workflow, but you can go for the tier base. You are going for the next tier of whatever it is in discovery that you want to solve new problems that you are not solving at this moment. So in the end, product portfolio management is not something that happens one time. It's something that is, again, as everything else, pretty much, is a continuous effort. And you have to really make sure that you are understanding how you are looking at your strategic goals, looking at what are the areas where you think you should be investing and you should be driving to make sure that you are growing as a company or as a business, and how you are going to then distribute these resources that you have that are going to be always too little to do all the things that you want to do, no matter what is, in which situation you are. I haven't addressed what proper portfolio management is for multi-business companies, because that's a completely different situation. With multi-business companies, you will be a company that might be doing, I don't know, cars and refrigerators and smartphones, everything under the sun. Doing pro portfolio management, there's more like a business portfolio management, and inside those businesses, then you will have the proper portfolio management. So it will be adding extra layer, basically, of complexity to this. But again, you will have to also look into what are your strategic bets, what is the size of the development or size of the effort that you want to invest. And this is why sometimes you see these big movements in companies where they shift everything from one business to another, and that affects people, affects, well, there's personal changes, some people might get fired, teams disappear, and that's what happens many times with big corporations that are multi-business. With the smaller teams or smaller companies, it's a little bit different because they tend to shuffle teams within the company, which I don't think that is always the best approach. Sometimes you have to do it, but I think that it's better to have stable teams that are focusing in a product to make sure that they really have that ownership for the product, for the success of the product, for the success of the business. Product portfolio management is one of the key skills that you have to have as a product leader. If you want to know more about the different skills that you need to have for a product leader, go check out the product leadership framework that I put together. You can find the link in the description. And for next year, I plan to have several live courses, live trainings. If you're interested to know more about what they're going to be, go check out the link in the description as well, because the first one that I'm going to be driving is one about product operations that might be very interesting for you if you want to build product scale, bring that alignment, bring this structure to the ways that you and your teams are working. In any case, this is probably the last video that I'm doing this year, at least the last long form. Might have a couple of shorts, we'll see about that. I just want to thank you for 2025. I think that the channel has been doing quite well, and it has been quite good to see people coming back and seeing the videos, giving feedback. I would like to hear more about what you would like to see in the future. So please, if you can comment below, let me know. I wish for all of you a great start 2026. Seeing you in the next one. See you in the next year.